Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Friday, September 6th, 2019. Let's start us off tonight with our solar wind speeds coming in at 476.8 kilometers per second with a density of 1.8. Our sun is blank once again. That now makes 3 days in a row without sunspots, giving us a total of 172 days without sunspots in 2019. Our KP indice is quiet right now. It's coming in at a 1 with a 24-hour max of 4. As you see, our TCI is still elevated at 4.13. And we are looking at, I guess from September 7th, we are expecting some solar wind increases from the coronal hole we have in the southern hemisphere of the sun. Other than that, the coast is clear. There's a slight active region back here on the eastern limb, but that's not amounting to anything at all. So we will continue to see a blank sun for the time being. Now let's go ahead and take a look at SPACEWEATHER.com the space weather section here at grandsolarminimum.com, just to see if we have anything on the horizon. And right now we are all clear, especially coronal holes as well. So very low activity. We do see a couple of bright areas to kind of look at in the negative 180, but we've seen that before as well. So right now we are looking at a quiet sun. Let's take a look at our TSI, and it is trending on the down once again, coming in at 1360.67. And that was for August 29th, 2019. It peaked out, it looks like, around 1360.75. So interesting to see what the numbers look like here soon when we talk about TSI and the correlation with Hurricane Dorian. Now, I do know that we had a sunspot appear on the sun around this date, or maybe closer to the 1st. So I'll be curious to see the strength of the sunspot. How much does it drop TSI? And if it doesn't drop it very much, that'll also give us a gauge of how weak our sun is compared to what we saw back in September of 2019 when we had the rather large sunspot and it dropped the TSI down to 1359. So be interesting to keep our eyes on the TSI report here over the next several days. So tonight, it's Friday night. It's been a while since I've had a chance to talk about anything but Hurricane Dorian. Mari gave a great report earlier this afternoon, kind of trying to catch us up on some world news. There is still more to report. But tonight, we're going to bring our friend Matt from Nebraska onto the show tonight to kind of talk about just what the situation is like right now. Matt, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, Jake.
I think we got you back there. You were breaking up on.
Jake?
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay, how are you doing this evening?
Pretty good, bud. So the last time we talked, we just basically scraped the tip of the iceberg, and there of course there's so much to talk about when it comes to agriculture. I know everybody's anxious right now about how our crops are going to turn out this year. And I know me and you were talking earlier today, and we were talking about temperatures. And it's funny, I double checked the GFS, and today the forecast towards the end of the month looks a little more encouraging than what it did just 2 days ago. So we were talking earlier, kind of give us an idea. Like, I know you told me you got your fields are in pretty decent shape, but as we were talking earlier, we're still 3 to 4 weeks behind. Are you hearing any kind of concern around the communities out there, or is this just taking it day by day right now?
Oh, yeah, I mean, you hear people talk. In years past, you've never heard people talk about an early frost since I've been farming. And this is the first year that I've heard people, the farmers at church or anywhere else just talking shop that, sure hope we don't get an early frost. It'd be a bad deal. So Like I said last episode that I was on, that there would still be some corn to harvest for most people around here, but it sure would lighten the test weight on the corn, so we don't need that.
So with September, and I was talking also, we were talking about temperatures when they start to kind of get a little cooler, and you had mentioned that starts happening around late September, which, that's about what the GFS is saying too. So it's not so much that the temperatures are so dramatically cooler for September, but where we are in the growth of the crops.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the crops are behind, even though our crops here look good. I mean, they're in good shape. Most of the time, where they're at right now is where they would have been at, say, August, 10th.
Right.
Somewhere in that range, So it's just not quite a month behind, but we're just still behind. We just need a little more heat to get them finished up before the first frost hits.
So I know you did your winter wheat, or you did your wheat harvest several weeks ago, but how did that end up coming out for you guys? With everything went well, and other farmers didn't have any issues as well on their harvest?
Well, the biggest issue was all the rain. It yielded really well. I mean, the reason it yielded well was all the moisture that we received, earlier in the year, and we were set up nice, drilling it last fall. So we had a good crop. It was just getting to it to get it out of the field. We had, 3 rain delays, and then you're dealing with muddy fields.
Yeah.
And it was just another struggle to get another crop out. So, but it actually ended up yielding really well. Ours ended up around that 85 bushels to an acre average. So.
And for some of the viewers out there who don't really know much about the acres, that kind of number right there, 85 is a good time, or is that a bad one, or is it right in the middle, or?
No, that's really good. That's one of the top average yields that we've had.
Well,
we had 1 year that was actually better than that, and that happened. Let me think back here. I think 2016. When 2016 or 17 is when that occurred. So I don't know. Out here, we usually are so dry that the moisture has actually been welcomed. Here for getting the crops. It's just the lack of heat. And the biggest thing with the corn crop was just not getting it in the field in time. And
right.
Most of the time, our wheat average, it's varied over the years. The varieties have gotten better. There for the longest time, if you hit 50 bushels, 50 bushels to an acre, you thought you were having a pretty good wheat crop. But we've harvested anything from 10 to 20 bushels to the acre before, just because of poor conditions. So.
I saw this article here, and they pulled some farmers out in the Midwest. It says most farmers agree in 2019, the hardest year they've experienced after extreme Midwest weather and catastrophic floods resulted in a locally historic delayed planting season. According to a survey conducted by Farm Futures, the survey results said that 53% of the respondents believe that this year was the most challenging for them, and that 49% of these farmers were baby boomers and mature growers who struggled through the farm crisis in the 1980s. Now, I know you said that your father also was a farmer. Do you remember him talking about the farm crisis of the 80s? And would you say that 53% believe that this year is the most challenging?
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised the number isn't higher. But yeah, my dad, he talked about the farm crisis of the 80s, quite a bit. It was the reason why that was such a crisis is because you had high interest rates. So going to the bank to get a loan, an operating loan, or a loan to buy equipment or land, you were paying, really high, up 12, 13% interest rates. So for for the prices to be low and the interest rates to be high, you had to really watch your dollar, every dollar you spent. Right now, we're fortunate as farmers, our interest rates at the bank are lower. So if that happens to go up, that'll be another wrench that will be thrown at us, so to speak. Because the prices are low now, and just the struggle with the weather, getting crops in and out of the fields has just been, horrendous.
Yeah, we've watched in pretty much amazement for the majority of the year. And, one thing I can say just by looking at these forecasts coming up, the Farmer's Almanac, the old Farmer's Almanac, no matter which one is right, I think the one thing that concerns me the most is that the wet pattern that we're going to be seeing, it doesn't seem to disagree that we won't see a constant rain or a constant, whatever it is. There's going to be plenty of precipitation to go around in the Midwest, which also leads me to believe that I feel like with what I've seen and some of the predictions that are coming up for this coming winter here for the United States, and interestingly enough, I saw that Ohio and parts of eastern Indiana and Michigan are going to get the biggest snow blast as far as where the most snow is supposed to fall, which was interesting because I've heard people compare this winter coming up to the 77 and 78 winters, which that was the year I was born during they called it the Great Blizzard of 78. And to hear that this year is going to be a repeat or possibility of that, and then seeing the prediction for Ohio to get that kind of snow, very interesting forecast and how this is lining up. But either way, as far as harvesting goes, with the crops being delayed for the most part, where does that put us right now for a healthy harvest and, to be as patient as possible? What kind of dates are we looking at right now? I mean, good thing that we do have some heat, but still we're behind 3 to 4 weeks. So what are we talking as far as what dates are we going to start seeing these harvests kicking in gear?
If the forecast kind of holds true, I don't really expect for us to get to the field until probably, the late first week in November at the best. Usually we're rolling in October, but so that's going to put it, a good, usually second week of October for sure we're rolling, so that's going to put it 2 to 3 weeks behind, just like what it is. If the weather holds. If the weather turns off cool, it might push it back another week. One thing that, some farmers that are set up to do this with, we have some of it, is, you can pick it wet and dry it. But that takes more money to put in the crop.
Right.
So at this point, the margin of error is pretty thin on putting any more money into it, where the prices are.
Is this the latest that you've had to expect a harvest, or have you had a year where it was later than that? This will probably be the latest that I have ever expected it. Last year I kind of knew it was going to be late, but last year was kind of the first year we went through it. I didn't realize how. Last year I don't think we got started until the 1st of November, and then we ended up getting a bunch of moisture and it pushed us back. We didn't really harvest for about a good solid week. Jeez. Earlier we talked as well, and I mentioned to you, what do things look like? They say this year is, bad. Next year is supposed to be just as bad, if not a little bit worse. So if we're expecting this kind of conditions, this challenge, the late winters, the wet springs, the wet summer too, and each year these kind of jump up just another notch. I mean, what is that going to do to agriculture in 4 or 5 years when we constantly see these historically late plantings and these late harvests, but then possibly experiencing quite a bit of early freeze before we even get to the harvest? What what kind of things could we, I mean, I know obviously price hikes, but what kind of things could we expect? Like, how long do you think our agriculture could stand winters like this one and beyond?
Well, it's probably gonna cut the supply. If you're gonna be, your average yield's gonna go down, which, like you said, will raise prices. I mean, the one thing you can do to combat it is corn has different age maturities. Plant a shorter season corn maturity to make sure that you at least get a crop. But normally with shorter age maturity corn, or wheat or anything like that, or soybeans, you lose yield. Just the name of the game. You give up one thing to get another thing, but you're sacrificing yield on it. So it'll all have some sacrifice to it.
So I mean, I get what you're saying. There's different kinds of maturity of corn. So, and this is why I'm glad I asked the question, because a lot of people, I mean, this is going to be challenging, no doubt, but I'm glad to hear there's actually some possible solutions to kind of combat these short growth seasons. I think that we will be looking at growing indoors at some point on a large scale if this continues. But it's good to hear, like, from a farmer who's done this for a while, telling us that we'll just have to change the game a little bit. We'll just have to change what we plant. We'll get a crop in the ground. It's not going to have the yield that we have. And this is all about stuff that Mari's talked about in the past too, conservation and what we consume and what we waste, and really just kind of zooming out and look at the food supply that you have in your home now and think about ways of how to stretch it. I don't care if you're well off or not. How would you stretch out today if for some reason we had an issue with our food and the prices were too high, we couldn't afford it, or the farmers couldn't keep up with supply and demand? How long could you make what you have in your cabinets right now stretch? And that's kind of the importance of bringing people on like Matt. He's real life doing it. He's around it. He's in it. These are the concerns of a lot of farmers across the country. And the idea of having him come on and kind of talk to us, to give us the real time, like what's really happening out there. We hear a lot of possibilities of people trying to act like that crop situation's A-okay, we're going to be just fine. I mean, I hear a lot of hope in Matt's voice. I hear a lot of positive things in Matt's voice, but I also hear things like, I've never seen it this way before, or I've never had to do it this late. And the hope is we don't have to continue to see the mess that we saw this year when it comes to planting. But the truth of the matter is that so far every year that we have broadcasted about this topic, we have taught and been told that this would get worse, and it has. So you bring up a good point. I'm assuming, Matt, you could do that with other kinds. What other crops could we, like, as far as changing the seed up, and you're talking about changing the maturity of the corn, can you do that with soybean and other crops as well if they know they're going to have a shorter growth season?
Yeah, there's different maturity levels for, the ones I know about is, corn, wheat, soybeans for sure. As far as like your vegetable crops, as far as, there's shorter season sweet corn varieties and stuff like that. But as far as like other vegetable crops like cucumbers or stuff like that, we don't raise, of course. So I don't know. But as far as corn, you have different, growing days, how many days it takes to reach maturity. So,
and, well, and about corn and soybean and wheat, so that's the staple, that's the foundation of our food. So knowing that we can plant a different type of corn to help combat the shorting growth seasons is a little more hopeful. Like I said, we're not trying to present any kind of fear of starvation, but you have to sit back and think about the possibilities of if this gets as bad as the the Maunder minimum, like some are saying. We do know there was a lot of famine due to crop loss, due to the cool weather and the not so favorable conditions for crops growing. So it's important that we try to stay on top of this and adapt. And it's like I always say this, when you want to think about ideas of how to combating the crop issues that we're going to be facing over the next several decades, you have to be the quarterback. And the quarterback, a good quarterback, will throw the football in front of the receiver, not right at him. And right now, I think starting these talks and starting to talk about things like this and just hearing the real situation is getting ready to put the ball in the right place. So, Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a really, really busy guy. We really appreciate you coming on the show and just answering a few of our questions about farming and all that stuff. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, bud.
Hey, no problem. Anytime, Jake.
All right, man. Take care, Matt.
Bye.
See you. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you like the show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, I got some. It's movie time, folks. Get your popcorn and get your drinks. Get your drinks. Again, I really enjoy talking to Matt. Me and Matt talk way more than just once every 2 weeks. I've met Matt via the internet, and he shares a lot of his daily life as far as what farmers go through and what they do. And guys, the work is never ending. I mean, there is so much to do in a day, and when the weather acts the way it acts, I mean, I can't imagine the stress that it must cause these guys on a daily basis, especially dealing with such a challenging forecast as we've dealt with all year. All right, so tonight's climate section, I've got a couple of short videos, and we have an article to talk about too. Where is it? Is it in here, Mari? Okay. I see it right here, but there was another one I want to show. We'll get to that as well. I think it's there. It's fine. So it's actually with the video. Never mind. I apologize. Mari did a good job. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, then.
I tried.
So here we go. We're going to be doing a little exposing here tonight. This gentleman here had a line of questions for John Kerry. And I think these are legitimate questions. And, for anyone out there who says that the other side wants to debate this and actually have a serious conversation, well, you be the judge. Take a look.
Instead of convening a kangaroo court, the president might want to talk with the educated adults he once trusted to fill his top national security positions. It sounds like you're questioning the credentials of the president's advisors currently, but I don't think we should question your credentials today. Isn't it true you have a science degree from Yale?
Bachelor of Arts degree.
Is it a political science degree?
Yes. Started over.
So how do you get a Bachelor of Arts in a science?
Let's.
This is just not a serious.
I'm just going to fix the audio real quick, guys. Sorry about that. That was my fault. I am a goof.
Conversation.
Your testimony is not serious. Secretary Kerry, I want to read part of your statement back to you. Instead of convening a kangaroo court, the president might want to talk with the educated adults he once trusted to fill his top national security positions. It sounds like you're questioning the credentials of the president's advisors currently, but I don't think we should question your credentials today. Isn't it true you have a science degree from Yale?
Bachelor of Arts degree.
Is it a political science degree?
Yes, political science.
So how do you get
My
a
regret.
Bachelor of Arts in a science?
Well, it's liberal arts education and degree. It's a bachelor.
Okay, so it's not really science. So I think it's somewhat appropriate that somebody with a pseudoscience degree is here pushing pseudoscience in front of our committee today. I want to ask you,
Are you serious? I mean, this is really serious happening here?
you know what? It is serious. You're calling the president's cabinet a kangaroo court. Is that serious?
I'm not calling his cabinet a kangaroo court. I'm calling this committee that he's putting together a kangaroo committee.
What are you saying, that he doesn't have educated adults there now?
I don't know who it has yet because it's secret.
Well, you said it in your testimony.
Why would he
That's
have
what
to
you're
have a
saying.
secret analysis of climate change?
Let me ask
Why
you.
does the
let me ask-
president
Let's
need
get
to
back
keep
to the
it
science of
secret?
it. Let's get back to the science of it.
But it's not science. You're not quoting science.
Well, you're the science expert. You got the political science degree. Look, let me ask you this. What's the consensus on parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere?
About 406 today.
Okay, 406. Are you aware that
350 being the level that scientists have said is danger.
Did you hear that part? The 350%, the 350 parts per million. That's dangerous. That's what Kerry. Now I love the reaction here this lawmaker has. Watch this.
Okay, are you aware? 350 is dangerous. Wow. Are you aware that since mammals have walked the planet, the average has been over 1,000 parts per million?
Yeah, but we weren't walking the planet. Let me just share with you that we now know that definitively at no point during the past 800,000 years has atmospheric CO2 been as high as it is today.
You go
When
back.
I was in the South Pole, I was given a vial of air which said on it, cleanest air in the world. It was 401.6 parts per million. That is 50 parts per million, already over what scientists say.
The
is acceptable.
reason you chose 800,000 years ago is because for 200 million years before that, it was greater than it is today. And I'm going to submit for the record.
Yeah, but there weren't human beings. I mean, there was a different world, folks. We didn't have 7 billion people.
So how did
living
it get to 2,000 parts per million if we humans weren't here?
Because there were all kinds of geologic events happening on Earth which spewed up.
Did geology stop when we got on the planet?
Mr. Chairman, this is just not a serious conversation.
Your testimony is not serious. I agree. When you can't answer the question, that's the best answer you got.
I did answer.
I submit for the record.
All right, this guy is my hero. The best part about this was, when we mentioned about 1,000 parts per million, and he'd said, "Well, we weren't here yet," and that. Well, okay, well, there's another argument. So if the CO2 was at 1,000 parts per million and we weren't here yet, then how are humans causing global warming right now when the parts per million of CO2 is roughly hanging around 410 parts per million? But it was a lot higher before we were even on the planet. And the other part about this was hilarious was when we talked about how 200 million years ago that CO2 was at a different level than we'd ever heard of over 2,000. And John Kerry's response was, well, there was geological events. Yeah, well, they didn't stop. Think about all the volcanoes that are going off right now. All the ash plumes that we've seen go into the stratosphere this year alone. But yet CO2 is not soaring. And neither is temperatures either. More movies, guys. More movies. This one here is even better. So we had this town hall climate crisis thing going on CNN. And I want you guys to take a look at this video because this drives home to some of the points that I've made about the Green New Deal as well. And this is what will happen. This is what these people want to do. Democrats. They're all pretty much on the same page when it comes to the climate.
This is on par with winning World War II. offshore drilling? Absolutely yes.
Banning certain behaviors.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should.
Do you ban fracking?
Absolutely yes.
The export of fossil fuels from the United States, would you ban that?
Absolutely, we must get to that point. We can do that.
Just on public lands?
No.
We can undo by executive action.
I have a real priority at the highest level of government.
Prohibit the permitting of oil and gas leasing on public lands.
You go after them, you try to change the law.
We're going to have to spend a lot of federal money.
Get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal.
Yes, to reduce red meat specifically.
Yes.
In the same way that we have taxed cigarettes, we're going to have to tax carbon.
We need to say that those who are throwing the carbon into the air that the rest of us have to breathe, that the rest of us have to deal with, are the ones who are responsible for paying.
Do you support a carbon tax?
Yeah, no, I would.
I will not approve any plans for the use of federal lands that are near tribal lands to our Native American brothers and sisters.
I love the vision of the Green New Deal. To me, the only issue I have with the Green New Deal is the timing of the timeline.
File lawsuits against polluters.
You propose setting aside half of American land and oceans for wildlife, for biodiversity.
Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet cannot sustain this growth.
Yes. And the answer has everything to do with the fact that women in the United States of America, by the way, have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions, especially.
All right, I want to stop it right there. What a disgusting fact and an outright disgusting comment that by having an abortion, you're doing your part in changing the climate. To me, infuriates me. I don't believe one or the other. That's not the issue. The issue is implying by people who do have an abortion, you're helping climate change. And to me, this is a low blow. This is the deepest fear-mongering that you could ever encounter when it comes to facts about climate change. I'll tell you what, folks, you got to call it for what it is here. These guys, I should say these clowns, voted down a debate on climate change, but voted for a town hall that talks about what we can do about the climate crisis. And so far we've seen people who think banning plastic straws will do the trick. Reducing the intake of red meat will do the trick. Banning offshore drilling will do the trick. I just don't, these people want to drop the CO2 to what levels? Nobody talks about what levels they're trying to take it down to. What parts per million are you trying to do it? And do you understand the proper parts per million we need to be at for our climate, for crops to grow? I mean, this is disgusting. This is fear-mongering beyond any kind of fear-mongering. To imply that abortions are necessary to keep climate change in check. Hey, look, believe what you want to believe. That's your prerogative. But when we all know on this side of the fence that climate change, man-made climate change, is a hoax, and then you see guys like this, I mean, this person should probably get a psych evaluation, honestly. All of them should. Beto, Cory Booker, Pocahontas, Creepy Joe, Grandpa Bernie, all of them need a psych evaluation. Let's take a listen.
Especially in poor countries around the world, where women do not necessarily want to have large numbers of babies.
Let's talk in language that is understood across the heartland. God is watching. I bet he thinks it's messed up, that it's a kind of sin.
One of the reasons I love the framing of the Green New Deal is it uses some of the language that we might associate with the way that we met the response of Nazi Germany.
look at how good these guys feel about themselves, talking about this framework of the Green New Deal, how important these guys actually think they are by supporting this ridiculous policy.
I guess it's 11 years that we have left. It was
The Syrian civil war is one of the first that was partly caused as a consequence of climate change.
This is one of the pernicious outcomes of Donald Trump's trade policies, this trade war with China.
This is the hardest thing we will have done, certainly in my lifetime as a country. This is on par with winning World War II, perhaps even more challenging than that. Right?
It is an existential threat. There is no doubt about that. The fact of the matter is that we make up 15% of the problems.
people who are poor, communities of color, take the brunt of storms that are getting more frequent. That's the environmental injustice and racism that we're dealing with.
So I would convene a geoengineering summit and get countries from around the world to make sure that we don't have rogue actors just going off on their own. So first, geoengineering is not the primary approach at all. We have to reduce emissions.
You are holding a high-dollar fundraiser hosted by Andrew Goldman, a fossil fuel executive.
It is not a fossil fuel executive.
A guy named Andrew Goldman, and their biggest project is a floating liquefied facility for natural gas.
I didn't realize he does that. And you think I'm kidding. It's almost not there now.
Can somebody tell me what's going on with Joe's eye? Good grief.
Blood-Eye Joe.
Wow, Blood-Eye Joe. Creepy Joe Biden, for sure. This is classic. This is why the Democrats want him to stay home and not do these things. When he said, Andrew didn't, no, he doesn't do none of that. You're wrong. And then you got the CNN guy there. He's like, well, Anderson Cooper telling him that he in fact is a part of natural gas, which again, the look on Joe Biden's face was like the Homer Simpson facial expression of the word dope. Again, these guys don't have a clue what is going to happen, what is going to really, really affect us. Or they do, and they've been asked to sell a theory that's going to protect the elite and not the common man. And these are just the worst actors possible to relay this message. So, but those are the two videos I wanted to share with you guys. The clown hall they had on climate crisis. That's what we should have called it. The climate crisis clown hall, starring Creepy Joe and his bloody eye. Whatever. Is that even really Joe Biden? I mean, some could say he looks like a reptilian right now, I think. I mean, can we
are getting that.
I'm just saying. Hey, if the shoe fits, you got to lace that up. You know what I mean? So. All right, another ship stuck in the water again. Global warming research team. Blah, 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 blah. Again, how many times are we going to see these articles? And it's funny, this is what I was talking about last year, actually. I brought this up because we had a couple of ships get stuck in the ice. And the narrative saying that the ice is melting faster than ever is dangerous to say, because you get these, these fellas, these wool sweater wearing fellas who want to explore the melted ice cap up here in the Arctic, and then they get stuck in the ice like, oh, how did this happen? This wasn't supposed to be here. Why is it here? And so to me, this is like another, one of those fact checkers. Like, these icebreakers getting stuck in the ice are like the debunkers of basically global warming. And when you hear people saying, oh yeah, the ice is melting, and then another vessel gets stuck in the ice due to the thickness of the ice. And I heard that the first year ice is thicker than usually that it's ever been, actually. So, all right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you like the show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.
All right, we're back. So, I was talking about Dorian to myself because the mic was not working, so I do apologize. But we were speaking about how Dorian is now booking out of here 24 miles an hour to the northeast. It is still Cat 1 and no longer a threat. It made landfall at Cape Hatteras earlier today, 8:35 p.m. We have lots of wind damage. Mari mentioned earlier there are some folks that are kind of stranded right now on some islands of the Outer Banks. So I'm sure we will see more stories on rescues and things of that nature. But the silver lining, I guess if there is any at all, is that people in the United States heeded the warnings of this particular hurricane and did not stick around. They heeded the warnings, evacuated, and in result of that, we only seen 1 death in North Carolina thus far, 2 in Florida, and 1 in Puerto Rico. So for the United States, the death toll is at 4, and a lot of that is because people did heed the warnings and vacate. Unfortunately, you have the same situation in the Bahamas, where right now the death toll is at 30 and expected to rise. So what's the power outage situation look like? Well, not as bad as it did earlier today. We had over 200,000 earlier today in North Carolina without power. Yesterday, it was the same story in South Carolina. And right now in North Carolina, we're looking at only 80,000 without power. South Carolina, you're almost completely restored. There's still 42,000 without power. Earlier today, we reported that Virginia had around 41,000 without power. And now that number has shrunk to 7,500. Take a look at our GFS forecast coming up here in the next few days. I'm not going to go too far out. I will show one thing at the end, though. I guess so. Never mind. I'll go through the whole 16-day forecast. So there's our storm taking off. Finally getting some peace and quiet on the East Coast here, September 8th, Sunday. Pretty dry for much of the country. We do see some scattered showers across the Northwest and parts of Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, and Illinois. Could see some showers as well. Moving into Monday, next work week, low pressure system really brewing up in the Northwest across the plains into the Great Lakes. The high pressure is keeping the Northeast and the Midwest fairly dry. Pretty decent sized storm to appear around Wednesday, September 11th in South Dakota. More moisture flowing through Texas as well. And that is middle of the week next week. That high pressure system trying to keep us dry again, but here's more of a wet pattern starting up on the 12th of September across the Great Lakes through the northern plains into the Northeast. That high pressure system is sitting down there around Georgia, so it's going to stream or bring that moisture across the Ohio Valley into the Northeast. And behind it, some cooler air will try to filter in around the middle of the month. Still wet. Now, take a look at what we got showing back up once again in our models. That's right. We talked about this potential hurricane that could affect the Northeast, and right now the track of it still early. This is September 22nd. Before we showed you this, we were looking at the possibility of a September 19th landfall somewhere in that area, but this storm is still hundreds of miles away from the coast. And at this point, it's just sitting out there in the middle of the Atlantic. And let's hope that this thing does turn away. But there are other models out there that are suggesting that this storm could take a turn into the Northeast by late September. And hopefully that doesn't happen. But we will keep our eye on this closely as we watch this storm. As we start preparing for the aftermath of Dorian, reports of that are already coming in. We may have another monster storm to deal with in that same vicinity. So too far away to really even say, folks. 16 days out is quite some time. All right, Mari, do you want to come over here and say hello to everybody real quick? Mari.
Hello to everyone real quick.
Oh, wow.
You like that, Jake?
That was good.
Yeah. Well, not bad for a novice amateur.
That's right.
What do you think?
You're a novice amateur.
I'd like to say hello to everyone in the chat. And if you notice in the banner, Mel has a big little, big little, see, that's the amateur in me. A big thank you for a donation he sent to us. with PayPal. He also became a subscriber on Patreon. And not only that, he's a business owner, and he asked for our permission to have his relative design a bumper sticker, like a sign, a large sign for the back of his van that says, "Are you prepared?" And is actually driving around with his van with thegrandsolarminimum.com on his van. Not only that, he also has our website on the bottom of all his receipts he prints out at his business.
Wow.
Spreading awareness.
Thank you, sir.
And not only that, he bought a t-shirt from us.
Well,
so I mean, huge thank you for supporting our channel. I'm so blown away and humbled by your support. And it's so awesome that there are people out there that are trying to get the word out and spreading the awareness and really trying to get humanity ready and prepared. And I'm out of words, Jake, really. I mean,
that is awesome to see the promotion of this, just to get the conversation started so people are finding out what is going on, why this is happening, and getting the real truth.
So what I'm going to do for Mel, I really, truly appreciate all his support, is I've offered to put up a little sponsor banner for his business on our website, because I don't know how to return the favor. You know, I like giving back. I don't like just taking. I really just, you know, I'm humbled.
Fair is
very
fair.
Truly humbled. So thank you. Really, really appreciated. Thank you, Matt, for coming on and giving us your perspective on what's going on with the farmers in Nebraska. And Thor says he's going to buy Greenland, and we're going to turn it into GSM land.
Nice.
And, you know, I'm talking about, you know, herding wolf packs and building igloos. Cheryl wants to know if we can have central heat in our igloos.
Oh,
I don't
boy.
know. We'll have to.
I don't know how the igloos will hold up.
If there's a will, there's a way.
I guess so. Thank you, Mari.
That's all I have.
For keeping us entertained in the chat. Guys, thank you for tuning in to our program tonight. We will be back live on Monday evening, 9 p.m. with the regular show. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mari probably did a couple presentations. There's a lot of world news we still have to catch up with, so lots to talk about. But for the most part, guys, we hope you have a great weekend. Have any questions or concerns, you can contact us at jake@thegrandsolarminimum.com or mari@thegrandsolarminimum.com. Please like and subscribe our YouTube channel and check out our website, thegrandsolarminimum.com. Until next time, guys, we will talk soon. Take care.